I may have gotten a little distracted and cast on something new. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel of crafting, crochet and knitting. My name is Nikki and welcome to my little yarniverse. How are you all doing? How are you finding the slightly more travel centric footage that I've been putting out recently? I feel like I've been trying to mix things up a little bit, trying some shorts for some just like shorter snippet content for people who are in a bit of a rush, trying some slightly different crafting like my needle felting, but then also trying to incorporate some of my travels into some of the vlogs. So yeah, how are you finding that? Do let me know in the comments, as well as what you're working on, of course. But yeah, I realised as I was looking back through the content that I've been putting out over the last few months that we haven't had a proper sit down and knitty crochet catch up in a while. So that's what we're doing today. And I feel like in these knitty crochet chat style videos people always tend to start with their finished objects, but I'm actually super excited about something that's still on my needles, just about, we're really close. So I thought that we would start with whips. So I have 3 whips to show you today. I am excited about all of them, but I'm going to show you the one I'm most excited about first, partly because we're so close to finishing it, but partly because it's turning out really well, and that is my Rievaulx sweater, which is actually still inside out because I was working on all of the seams recently. So again, let's completely flip this on its head and let me start by showing you what the reverse looks like. This is intarsia with a drop shoulder, and so you can see that there's multiple lines here of the intarsia, and every time that there's a colour change there is an end. So I have already woven in a good 60 or 70 ends on this already. There's a couple of bits at the ends, the collars here, where there's less of the right colour to weave into, so I've left that to try and decide, okay, how am I going to most tidily weave those ends in without them being seen. I've woven in the sleeves, so I feel like I've shown you this before, but I definitely didn't have the sleeves at the time, so I'll show you when it's inside, well, right way round in a minute. But yeah, I've done the sleeves. I'm really happy with how I've picked those up. So even though you can see the edge on the inside, you can't see it that much on the outside. And yeah, the only ends I've got left are just a few at the bottom because it got really late as I was finishing them last night, and I'm deliberately leaving the ones closest to the bottom because I haven't finished that yet, so I'm just not running the risk of them like getting caught out by them coming loose whilst I'm still working at the bottom of the jumper, not jumper, t-shirt. So let me show you right side around what this looks like. We have 4 colours from a tonal kit, and then this main bluey greeny tealy colour is a colourway from the Crafty Bird, so hand dyed from the Crafty Bird. But here we go. So I've got a sort of slightly rounded neckline there, quite short sleeves, with the hems being just a simple garter stitch on both the sleeves and the neckline, and then lots of intarsia colour work all the way down. The front, I thought that it would be best, this particular side of the pattern that we generated would be best on the front because I feel like I suit dark tones more, but the dark tones have kind of bunched up a little bit, and then I've got this really big lighter tone at the bottom here that I'm not super happy with, so I'm going to try and balance it out with my final row. And then the back, I sort of regret that that's not the front, because look at that, that's so nice. Why didn't I make this the front? But yes, I've done everything in the pattern that we generated. So I realise I'm talking as if I have shown you this before, and I don't actually know whether I've shown you this before. So basically, this is a pattern that I saw online, and the pattern is part of a book, and I don't have the book, so I'm just taking inspiration from the photos and trying to work out how it was done. Part of my enjoyment of knitting comes from experimenting and trying to figure out like how to reverse engineer things, and I think this has gone quite well. I had to do the sleeves 3 times, or do a sleeve 3 times before I was happy with it, because again, I wasn't following a pattern, I was just trying to work it out. So I was looking at the photos, I could see from the photos where the stitches were, kind of got a sense of how it was made, and it's different from any sleeves I've done before, because I don't do many drop shoulder constructions. I didn't know whether it would be flattering on me or not, and I'm pleasantly surprised, but I do always worry about how to do sleeves on me. My arm shape has changed drastically over the last year. I have notoriously had larger arms than many patterns would allow for, and moving from jumpers, which it doesn't matter if it's a little bit oversized because I'm allowing that extra space for my comfort, to t-shirts where that oversized sleeve doesn't look right, meant I was a little bit scared about how small to make my armholes. But yeah, I'm happy with these in the end. I deliberately left the side seaming with extra material, extra thread, so that I could seam further up if I needed to, which I did need to do. And yeah, I'm now really happy with both these sleeves. But we generated this pattern because the original had 3 colours and I had 4 in a tonal set, and then they were 4 50-gram balls in a tonal set, and then 1 100-gram skein that I felt matched the colourway. So the ones that were in the set were this green here, this variegated, and then I think, yes, so there's this lighter one, which I don't know if you can tell on camera, it's got a slightly bluer hint to it, and then this one which has got a slightly greenier hint to it, and this one has got little speckles in, and this one's just plain. So that's really hard to see on camera, it's a really subtle effect. But part of that was then, I don't have this like for like swap, I have a limited amount of my yarn, so I did a swatch of one of these little blocks to see how much yarn that took, and it took about 2 grams. So we realised that that meant we had a certain number of blocks to play with. I'm saying we because my husband helped me with this, because whilst I was swatching up and getting the sort of the more artistic creative elements sorted in my head, I was then telling him what rules I wanted that to be like coded up into, because I can code, that is my job, but he really likes it recreationally and he likes to contribute to my hobby, so I actually felt it was really nice to have him involved in that. I got him to code up a script that would work out based on how much colour I had, and the fact that there were certain colours that I didn't want to be next to each other. So those 2 really light tones, I didn't want them to ever be next to each other because I don't think they're different enough to stand out, and I prefer the darker tones, and the dark tones suit me better, so I wanted it to be not too light heavy. I didn't mind it when these 2 colours were next to each other because you can see the difference between the green and the blue, but it was like, it was all these things, right? It was me working out, okay, so what rules am I setting for myself in this, and then he generated several, like he ran his code a few times and generated several diagrams of what colours should go next to each other, and we settled on this one. So I have done the entirety of the diagrams that he gave me, and that's when I decided I need to seam it all up, try it on, and leave the bottom open just in case. So I did a mattress stitch up the side of this work, and I don't know if you can see, but I'm happier with the mattress stitch joins along the piece, more happy with those than I am with the intarsia joints. I don't know if you can see that, I don't know if you agree with me or not, but I think that my seaming was better than my intarsia, and so if I were to make something like this again, I would have just knit 6 blocks of colour, which would have been so much more simple, and then just seamed it all together afterwards, because that would have been so much easier than messing with multiple like balls, swapping the colour around each other, making sure that the yarn overs were in the right place and that everything was locked into position. So yeah, that was an oops moment and a revelation, but we're learning a new skill, we're learning intarsia, and yes, I seamed that up, added the sleeves because I wanted to make sure that I had enough of the I'm calling it the Aegean colour, so it's the Crafty Bird. In fact, actually, I think that was the colour that it was. I think it was Aegean by the Crafty Bird. So that was obviously going to be my neckline, my hems, my sleeves, because that was the one I had the most colour with. So I wanted to make sure that before I tried to lengthen this at all, I had added the sleeves, because these ended up taking quite a lot of yarn each. And then I still need enough left for the hem because I want the hem to be in that colour. And I think I could probably get away with adding just one more block of colour around here just to give it a tiny bit more length, and then adding a hem which will be about the same width as each of these blocks as well, which will be the Aegean the whole way around in garter stitch. So yes, having tried it on, it fits really well. Because it's not finished, I'm not going to try it on just yet, so I will try it on in a future podcast to show you the final finished product. But I'm super excited by it because I have tried it on and it does fit me really well, and I am really happy with it. I'm glad that the little risk I took with the sleeves of going a little bit smaller than I thought necessary has paid off. It's actually fitting brilliantly in a t-shirt. And yeah, I tried to make a t-shirt before with some West Yorkshire Spinners yarn, and I was doing it in a yoke down construction and left way too much space for the sleeves, and it doesn't look right, and I do want to frog that one back. So I'm kind of glad that I am replacing it with this t-shirt instead, which means I've got something to wear as a t-shirt whilst I am sorting that West Yorkshire Spinners one. So anyway, that's enough about the Rievaulx. Next thing that I'm super excited for is that I finally cast on my Northern Ireland Souvenir for my Souvenir wall. So if you are not aware, I am picking up yarn everywhere that I travel and looking for something to inspire me when I'm on those travels, and then turning the yarn into that inspiration so that I can put it on this wall behind me and I can have this really nice collection of things. I got a needle felting kit from Scotland when I went to Scotland, so that's going to go up on the wall eventually, but I figured that it would be daft to put it up by itself right now because I don't know how much space all the other things are going to take. So we need to get making some of these other ones. And we've been to Northern Ireland, not even recently, it was a year ago. We went a year ago to Northern Ireland, and the thing that inspired me there was very much the Giant's Causeway. And it might seem a bit cliche because it's the touristy thing and everybody goes there, but as a scientist, I just find the geology of it incredible, and the fact that the stones are, some of them really very regular polygon shapes, is, yes, it's stunning, and it was a beautiful coastline, very much inspired me. And the secondary thing that I was inspired by was the Carrick-a-Reid Bridge, because the texture possibilities with a rope bridge and how you can convert that into knitwear was a big thing for me. So I haven't gone too far with this just yet. I'm super excited for it, and I did blitz through the first sort of set of things I had to do, which was making some hexagons. And I wondered, should I knit them, because I'm going to knit the rope bridge inspired part. However, my crochet is definitely better for something like a hexagon than my knitting. So I have crocheted up 15 little hexagons, just a few rows, and they're so cute, quite soft. I used some yarn that I got in Ireland at, I think it was at Hanks. It's Ithaca Marilyn, in the colour 43, but it's this mossy green, and I just think that I was potentially going to use some other hand-dyed minis, but then I realised that these two colours that I picked up were Emerald Isle, you know, so green, a lush sort of healthy green, and then also I've got this literally called the North Sea colour, made in Northern Ireland, or made in Ireland, and it's Ithaca Tweed. So between these two colours, we've got, you know, the North Sea, and we've got the greenery of the coastline. So I'm working with those. I need to sew in my ends. And then my plan is to join these together and fill in the top side of them, so I keep as much of the hexagon shape as possible, like actually at the base of the banner that I'm going to make, but then pick up enough stitches to flatten it out at the top so that I can then knit upwards in a particular lace stitch that I found, which involves carrying kind of extra yarn so that you pick it up several rows later, and it creates a really nice triangle that looks like the rope bridge. So that's the plan. I suspect that we're going to have to try it and frog back if it doesn't work, and just be okay with that, because we are just learning techniques that we don't use regularly. That's the beauty of something which just ends up being like decorative homeware, because it can be any pattern. You're not having to worry about whether it suits you because it's going on your wall instead, and I think that removes some of the self-consciousness that we have when we're making garments, and we can just be free to explore and be creative. So yeah, I'm very excited for that as well. However, the third width that I have to show you is going to be a garment. I don't have a pattern for this, I'm making it up as I go, but we're using this Hayfield Spirit. Now this doesn't look like a normal ball of Hayfield Spirit, because once upon a time I was knitting a shawl with this, and considering that this is I think just a 100-gram ball of DK, I got pretty far into that shawl before I potentially needed, in fact I actually didn't even need to add a new ball at that point. I've got 3 of these, and I think I thought that 3 DK balls of yarn would not be enough to make a garment for me, and potentially it wasn't a year ago, but now I'm thinking it absolutely would be, especially because I held up that shawl fabric to my body to kind of get an idea of like how much area it covered, and it covered plenty. And then by the time I've added 2 more swatches of that area, I could potentially get a fairly big item with it. So we wrote it back because I wasn't too keen on the lace pattern that I was working in that shawl with this yarn. This yarn is stripy, so the stripes were cutting across the pattern. I wasn't a fan. On looking back at it, it wasn't as bad as I remember, but I still think I would prefer to do that shawl pattern in a different yarn, and I do have plans for that because I've got lots of yarn here. So I will be casting on that shawl again and showing that lacy texture in the future. But with this for now, I'm hoping to lean into the stripes and make a skirt. So I hope that this goes well. I hope that this suits me, having just mentioned about being self-conscious about whether garments suit me or not. But this, I've not got very far. I'm basically working 1 by 1 rib at the moment to make a waistband. This should be enough to fit me, but the way I'm doing it is in rows. For the waistband, just so that I can then fold it over, and I will have the ends open to weave in elastic if I need to. But what I'll do is I'll fold it over, and then I will knit into this edge, and then continue the rest of the skirt in the round and increase it slightly, because I want it to have a sort of A-line-ish, loose-ish fit, not super pleated but a bit flowy. I just think that would look really nice, especially because the ripples in the skirt would be exaggerated by the stripes. I think we'll find out. The thing is that this is just an experiment. It's just something to do with this yarn, this autumnal yarn that I love, and because it's quite thick, it will make a really nice autumnal skirt, because I think in summer you want something very loose and drapey and not necessarily a wool blend, but in autumn, as the weather is changing, you want something that is a little bit warmer, so you might switch to trousers, but you also potentially might want to wear a skirt. Sorry about the lighting there, I've just kicked my light. But yeah, like I want to wear skirts for as long as I can get away with in autumn, and sometimes end up switching to trousers because my skirts are too cool, or like warm weather focused. So yeah, hopefully this will make me a really nice autumnal and warm skirt to wear this autumn. So now that I've shown you my whips, I'm going to talk to you about my many finished objects, my FOs. One thing that I only really have photos of at the moment because they have been gift knits is the many Sophie Scarfs that I have been making, and this is because I think they're a brilliant quick thing to knit up as a gift for people. I have several skeins of yarn that I have acquired over the years that are not quite my colour, that don't really suit me, and I've thought, oh, what am I going to do with them? Or I've actually picked them up because I look at them and I think of a particular person in my life, a friend or family member, and I always intended to make them something but didn't know what I was going to make. And when I stumbled across a Sophie scarf and again did this thing where I tried to work out how it was made, and I worked it out, and I now just keep making them all the time. I think they're great little gift knits, and they are the perfect project. One skein with my wooden needles in my hand luggage when I go on holiday, taking about a week or so, just plenty of time on the plane to get it started, and it's just, yeah, it's been really good for that. So I've done a couple of blue ones now, green, pink, stripy, so yes. However, having said that, I do need to take a break from Sophie Scarfs because I have gotten a little bit bored of them recently, and I just wanted to cast on something new, and I had a real itch to cast on a pair of socks. So when I got back from one of my holidays recently, I instead picked up needles and cast on this, which is West Yorkshire Spinners Starling. So it's lots of blues with purple and green in there, and also like a little bit of white and gold flecks. And I just think it's really lovely colour. I did a quite long leg in 1x1 rib. And the reason for this is that I have a pair of socks where I did 1x1 rib once, and they are the best pair that I have made, in the sense that the 1x1 rib cinches around my ankle, which makes it really comfortable. They don't fall off, and I wanted to make a second pair because that pair are getting a little bit worn on the soles now. I wanted to have something that I could use to ease the burden on that pair of socks, a pair that I felt equally comfortable in. So I actually extended it, made it longer so that there was more of a cuff to fold over, and I also did a kind of a reinforced toe. So I took the reinforced heel pattern, and once I got closer to the toe, that's what I did, because I hoped that having a little bit extra material would make it a little bit more durable in not running down the fabric so quickly as I have with my other pair. Unfortunately, as pretty as these are, I think something about either my tension or the fact that I made this a longer pair means that it doesn't seem to cinch in on my foot as much as I would want it to. Or maybe it's just because I have lost a lot of weight now, and maybe I've lost a bit of weight in my ankles, and they don't actually fit as well as the previous pair that I made. So I still keep instinctively reaching for the other pair. More than I do these ones. I wore these quite a bit, but when it became obvious that they were a lot looser, I sort of haven't worn them much since. So yes, I think maybe as I continue to make socks over the next year at different months of the year, I should try to have a tighter tension, or I should consider actually removing a couple of stitches to see if that helps, which is potentially a problem, because I would love to make doodle deck socks, and I'm not sure how that would work with the stitch count, and whether that would be enough stitches or not to do the pattern repeats and still fit my foot properly. So I don't know, we'll have to see what we'll come up with for that one. The other sock related thing that I've been doing is mending my husband's socks, because he has had the exact same problem as me, in that he wore through the bottom of the feet here, and I did have more of the yarn left that I used to make these socks a couple of years ago now. So I took a strand and I did a fix. Because what you can do is you can take your yarn, you can go across, you just latch it into a stitch that isn't broken, and you then go across to the end, and then you leave the same length again to come back on yourself, and then you come back into the stitch above, and then you do you don't leave any at this end, you just go straight into the stitch above that, and you do that again. So you've got a length as big as the hole, and then you've got a length as big as the hole again on the other side, looped around on itself, so you've got plenty of slack. And then what you do is you take the row, which is still secure, and you crochet hook up until you reach again the end of the hole at this side, so that you can graft it in place. So you would use the tail to graft each row as you go, and eventually the loop that is at the end that you left will pull tighter and tighter, because you're using more than just the horizontal direction. When you lift it into the V shape, you actually pull some of it each time you make the stitch, and eventually, you know, it's about twice as long is what you need in order for it to pull up, and vaguely speaking match the gauge that you have. This isn't the best fix in the world, because he didn't give them to me when he was already starting to wear it down, when it would have been easier to fix. He only gave it to me when they were already ripped. And I had to do it on the other sock as well, so there's another patch too. And I would say that if you're going to mend your hand knitted socks, keep an eye on them, and then as you start to notice that the wool has plied away from the friction of the bottom of your feet, and you're left with the nylon, that's when you should repair it, because you can use the nylon thread as a guide, reinforce it with a new thread of the yarn so that you get the wool and the nylon back again, so there'll be twice as much nylon but there will be the original amount of wool, and then that will reinforce it. It's easier for you to sew because you can just follow the nylon that's already there. And you don't have to mess around with crochet hooks and guessing the right length in order to do the fix, and it potentially being too loose or too tight, because you're just following what's already there. So that would be my advice, but of course you can do this fix, and people across history have done this fix whenever an actual hole has occurred. So yes, that was some fixing that I did. And then I have one more thing to show you that I'm excited for finishing, and that is my Norway Cowl. So I think the last time I showed this, I hadn't done the other side, and I did decide in the end that I was going to repeat the pattern on both sides, because I had enough yarn to do so, and I just thought that way I could potentially try a different cast off method to see if I liked a different method, and I could go back and do that on the other side. But in the end, nothing I tried was really working for me, and I just did a reverse stockinette stitch instead on both sides, and just left it at that. So it blocked out relatively well in the end. It is a little bit longer on this side than it is at the bottom, sorry, than it is all the way up, because the stockinette stitch has got this curl to it, whereas on the ends it's sort of splayed out a bit, but you can't really tell now that I've blocked it out, and it is really soft. So I am so happy to have that finished. I actually finished it and cast it off maybe a week and a half ago now, maybe 2 weeks ago, and put it on the side because I just could not face weaving in the ends. And then the other night I was sat here thinking, I just have to weave the ends on this and then I can get it blocked and then it can be put away. Why am I not doing this? And there's not even that many ends on this. There was like 6 ends. So I don't know why I was being put off by that. I think because I was really hyper focusing on my Rievaulx at the time, and then as I was getting to the end of that, I realised I could free up some space to properly finish the Norway Cowl. So that is the Norway Cowl. Now the Norway Cowl is not my souvenir for the souvenir wall from Tromsø. I've got different yarn for that, which does mean that sometime in the future I will have to work on that banner, and that's also going to be a Northern Lights pattern of some description. I'm just trying to work out how to make the 3 colours work in a way that I'm going to be happy with. So yeah, that is all my finished objects that I've been working on over the last few months. So what is going to be happening in the not too distant future? I've already spoken a little bit about how I'm switching gears and focusing on some of my souvenirs for the souvenir wall. So obviously I've started my Northern Ireland one, I'm thinking about my Tromsø one, and I'm also thinking a little bit as well in the background about my Barcelona and my Rome one, because we visited Italy relatively recently as well. So I'm thinking about all of those souvenirs and hoping that I'm going to get those sorted, because I have a couple of other places that I want to travel to. Not yet, probably a bit later in the year, but that does mean that I kind of want to get through as many of the souvenirs that I have outstanding as possible, because I want to then free my headspace up for when I go to these new places and not have all these ideas floating around in my head and no time to action them. So we're trying to make some very deliberate steps at the moment towards making souvenirs. And of course, as soon as I have a couple of souvenirs ready, I can start placing them on my wall, which makes the back of my video a lot more exciting. I've also said about how I really want to bring in doodles. So I've got so many doodle decks. There are so many patterns in there that I want to try, and I've got ideas around who they're for and what they're going to be, like mittens or socks or scarves. I'm planning, don't tell my husband, I'm planning to make him coffee inspired doodle socks, because he is a big coffee connoisseur, and I just think that that would be really nice for him, and I can bet that if he wears them in front of his father will absolutely want them as well. So that's going to be a bit of an experiment. There's some skiing ones, because we ski sometimes, that I kind of want to make for us as well, matching ones that are skiing. There is a dino deck, and I have a friend's kid who is big into dinosaurs, and it has been on my radar now to make him a scarf for so long, and we need to finally cast that on as well. So there's lots that I'm thinking of. I've also got a friend whose kid could use some more mittens, so I'm thinking of, yeah, what patterns I could put on her mittens. Yeah, so I'm again, so many ideas buzzing around in my head for doodles. But some of my knitting and crochet is having to take a little bit of a back seat over the next few months, because I am going to a convention, and I am going to be making cosplay. This is not strictly my MO. I think this is slightly something more that like my husband is egging me on into. I'm not opposed to it, like I love fandoms, but I'm not the sort of person who feels comfortable putting myself out there socially in large crowds, let alone dressed up in a fandom and hoping that I don't look ridiculous. So because like, I don't know if you've been to conventions, but some people's costumes are incredible. Like, they work on them for months, and I am not that artistic. So I'm gonna try it. I might film it, and if it goes horribly wrong, you will never see it. If it goes right, then you will see my attempts at sewing myself some cosplay. So that's also something that's coming up on this channel in the next few months, and I hope that's okay. I mean, this is my channel and I'll make the content that I want to, but I'm aware that I'm very much like mostly knitting and crochet, and people that are here are probably here for the knitting and crochet. But I do enjoy crafts more holistically. I paint, I've made glass paints before, I've made needle felting more recently, I do sew. Actually, as I'm saying all of this, there's something that we did recently with friends where we did some glass fusing work. So yeah, I'm really happy with how that came out as well. I do like these like little extra creative bits and pieces, and I like to share them, so hopefully you're enjoying them. Yeah, and other than that, I'm super excited for it. I'm much more energized than I was, but I do feel like my craft has taken a bit of a backseat over the last few weeks, and is going to be taking a bit of a backseat over the next few weeks, because we've had a lot of house renovations going on. So all of these ideas that I have, like I said, I keep saying that, but I'm swimming around in my head, is because I have all these ideas and I don't have the outlet to actually start making it happen. I don't have the time to start making it happen, and sometimes don't have the energy to start making it happen. And I feel like I'm getting a bit of a revival at the moment because we're in a bit of a break between renovations, and it's giving me new energy, and I've finished some things and I've cast on some new things. That's sort of helping, I think, with my mental health at the moment. But I'm not gonna lie, the renovations have been a lot to handle, and there have been a lot of tears and a lot of dealing with those stresses, and knitting had to come second to dealing with those stresses. And I'm glad I have a bit more time now, but I don't know over the next round of renovations how much time I'm going to have. So hopefully I will have plenty of time. The benefit of the short form content is that I can still bring you guys updates, even if they're not longer, chattier videos like this. But I want to share with you what I'm making. I want to hear what you're making in the comments as well. And so hopefully I will still be able to update you, and I'll sit down and do a proper long form video as soon as possible. But yeah, that's what's been happening. That's where I've been. I hope that you will please bear with me as I get through this phase in life. And yeah, I hope you don't have to deal with all these home renovations that I've been dealing with. Otherwise, that is it for today, folks. I'm so glad that I've been able to sit down with you and share some of the exciting things that I'm working on. I might be able to share with you in future as well, like some planning that I'm doing, because I've got myself a new journal and I'm trying to plan my knitting in a bit more so that these ideas are a bit more orderly. So yeah, I might share that soon as well. But I'm going to wrap the video up here for today, and like I say, let me know in the comments what you have been working on, and I will see you in the next video, whatever that may be. Bye for now, everyone.